for being here. My name is Andrea Lopez.
Hi, my name is Ceci.
Thanks for coming to Tia Chucha Centro Cultural. If you're new here, we are a nonprofit and we're also a bookstore and a cultural center. We do a lot here. If you don't know about us, we have cultural arts programming that centers on the arts, all types of arts, and then we also center on ancestral knowledge. One of the events we have today is with Erika Buenaflor, of course, that's why you're here. And then we have literacy events, and we tend to focus on an intergenerational audience as well for many of our events. So thank you for being here. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what this event is, or what it's part of. This is part of the Indigenous in Us program that we have. And this is a program that started as a series of free public culture events showcasing Northeast San Fernando Valley community-based indigenous practices of Native Mexica and local Native American groups that benefit individual and social well-being through sharing the ancestral knowledge and the arts. This started in late 2019, and then we went through the pandemic with it virtually, and then we started doing hybrid, kind of like what we're doing now. And yeah, so I'm very excited to be joined by Erika Buenaflor today. She is the author of the books that you see right here with us. And then most recently, the cards that we are talking about today, or that she's talking about today. So she's been practicing, she's been a curandera for more than 20 years that has descended from a long line of grandmother curanderas. And she has a master's degree in religious studies with a focus on Mesoamerican shamanism. Shamanism? Am I saying that right? Okay, shamanism. From UC Riverside. She'll tell you a little bit more about herself in a bit, but I want to pass it over to Ceci.
Hi everyone. Again, my name is Ceci. For those of you that are here, we have a survey that we're going to ask. Excuse me. So we have a survey here that if you please fill out, you'll get an opportunity to take home either a book or an oracle card by Erika. And
yeah, that'll be after today's event. So if you'd like to participate, we'll be right there and you guys can pick a book. This is for people that are here with us in person. If you're watching live, you can check out our online bookstore and support our bookstore by purchasing any of Erika's books or the Mesoamerican cards there. Thank you. And here we go.
Thank
Erika,
you guys.
thank you.
Thank you. So hi everybody, and thank you for everybody who's here and watching this online. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So before I tell you a little bit about the TZOLK'IN, the TONALPOHUALLI calendars and how they were used for divinatory purposes, and also the day signs. And if you see me looking around, because I'm going to be doing some eye contact with the people that are here, as well as the camera. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself and what inspired me to create this deck, and also what's inspired the books. Because a lot of my books really focus on tracing the roots of curanderismo to our indigenous traditions, specifically the Mesoamerican tradition. That's what I focus on. So I'll go back a little bit. You know, when I was in college, my awakening, my spiritual awakening happening was social justice. When I got to UCLA, it was like 3 years after it was a hunger strike, and they did a strike because we won a Chicanic Studies department. So I kind of like swept up in that, and my spirit awakened with a lot of spirit of social justice. And then at the time, I was also for that, because my great-great-great-grandmother, she was a very well-known curandera, and that was like a very big part of my life. I mean, even just recently, a couple weeks ago, when I went to go visit my grandmother, like one of the things like my aunt was saying, like she was having a problem with the bank, she's like, honey, do a velación. And I was like, okay, that's where I learned all that. It's just like so common, right? So anyway, so I was like studying curanderismo, like a little bit that academic, and during that time with social justice, I got inspired to go to law school, kind of like fast forwarding. I did a label organizing too with the Justice for Janitors, and then I went and became an attorney, like all idealistic. My second year in law school, I missed my flight, met this really interesting gentleman, and during that time, he actually introduced me to my first two curanderics, I should say. One of them, Don Tomas, he did a reading for me. He did limpia for me. And one of the things, he introduced me to the Maya TZOLK'IN. And I'll tell you a little bit about the difference between TZOLK'IN and TONALPOHUALLI, in a second. It's going to tell you a little bit about what inspired me. And, he did a reading for me, and after the limpia, I told him, he's like, so what are you going to do, mija? And, I told him about my background and what I loved, and I said, I'm going to be an attorney and do social justice and work at nonprofits and la, la, la. And he began laughing at me. He's like, mija, no te va a gustar, like, you're not going to like it, you're like, and I was laughing, and he's like, you're curandera. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be an attorney, okay? So, needless to say, 7 years thereafter, I continued going back to the Yucatan to study, to mentor with them. It was Barbara and Tomas, and I worked with others. I did a lot of temazcals. It was something that I didn't know why I was doing it, and I was already an attorney. And I did limpias for people. I did energy work, like those kind of things. I did all those things during that time, and I didn't know. Fast forwarding, 2005, I was hiking. I slipped. I woke up being airlifted. I woke up and I found out I had a skull fracture, brain hemorrhage, left AC dislocated, 2 vertebrae in my back fractured. I completely shattered my coccyx. Left leg I fractured in 3 places. Right leg, knee down, all of my bones shattered and came out of my heel. And they told me all kinds of horrible things. I was going to be in pain the rest of my life. Sorry, your coccyx is shattered. There's nothing we can do. They also told me that if I walked, because I also got severe osteomyelitis, I lost half the bones in my right ankle. They were going to amputate my foot. Short version, right? Giving the Cliff Notes version. They told me if I walked, it was going to be with some kind of assistance. So, during that time when I was in my mentorship, my first 6-7 years of mentorship, I was like, oh, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know. It's like always doubting myself. And during that time, I was still studying. I actually printed out, I made card papers of the TZOLK'IN because I was so amazed by them. I felt so connected to these day signs. I felt so connected, and I started also learning about TONALPOHUALLI, but I started first with the TZOLK'IN because my mentors, it was in the Yucatan, so they're very, very strong in their traditions, the Maya. They're just they love and they're very proud of them. So during that time, fast forwarding, when I found out I had all these illnesses, I finally agreed to embrace my don. I was like, I embrace my don. I surrendered. I was just like, I embrace. I embrace God. Please don't throw me off a cliff again. I get it. So, yeah. So yeah, it was a year. I was in a wheelchair for a year. During that time, I put into practice everything that I learned. One of my mentors, Tomas, he mainly worked with herbs, and he worked a lot with the day signs. He worked with limpias. Barbara, she was mainly a sobadera. That's how I worked with her. And I learned everything that I learned from them, I put into practice. I worked with my hierbas, my herbs. I worked with a lot with sobas. And after not walking for almost a year and being in a wheelchair for almost a year, I walked with a completely normal gait in less than 2 weeks after my last surgery. And during that time, I was just like, okay, I got to a point where I was very, very happy that I had met these amazing mentors, but I wanted to go deeper into my indigenous roots and understand what were the codices. I wanted access, because I would go and I'd research, and you had to have access to universities, to go here, to go to this library, to see the original codices, and I'm like, I want that. So in the middle of everything, I decided I'm going to go back to grad school. And during my time in grad school, I learned more about the day signs. And I fell in love with them, and I began working, and at that time I started integrating, feeling more comfortable with the Central Mexican TONALPOHUALLI. And there was one time when I was going there, I actually met my two mentors, my last 2 mentors. I had other mentors, but I had 4 principal mentors, and that was Malina and Don Fernando. And when I worked with Don Fernando, and then Malina also started, she worked a lot with a lot of people that they identified with Nahuatl traditions. And I never really resonated with, and sorry, no shade, I love Western astrology, but I never really resonated with it. And I was like, okay, that's cool, that kind of sounds, and I'm like, But then I had, after temazcal, I had a tomado, I had my day sign interpreted, and it was with one of the curanderos there, and looked at me, he's like, mija, you're deaf. I was like, oh. You're Miquitzli and Kimi. And that resonated with me because I actually have died like that one fall accident. I've died like a total of 3 times in my life where I literally flatlined, and I always came back, and I came back stronger, and I kept back learning, and I came back downloaded with a lot more information, and that was just like, I need to learn more about these. I just delved deeper and further into that. Then I started working with the TONALPOHUALLI. So, like here I am, fast forwarding now. And for like 18 years, actually more than that, because I like counted like, pretty soon I'm gonna say I'm maybe like working for almost 30 years as a curandera. Almost there, like woo, getting up there. Been starting like over 20 years. But anyway, for about 18 years, I actually worked with the paper cards and actually taught classes. Some of the people that are here actually remember that. I had like classes and I had like paper signs where I would teach people about the day signs, and I would teach like different readings with the day signs. And finally, I talked to my husband, and I really, in my heart of hearts, like wanted to. I said, honey, I really want to make this information accessible. I don't want to lose these traditions. I don't want my gente to like lose these traditions. I want us to continue learning about the day signs. So we actually invested in making the cards. So let me tell you about what they are. So and the divinatory calendar. So the divinatory calendar in Mesoamerica, ancient Mesoamerica, there was the predominant calendar was the calendar round. Okay, the Maya also had the long calendar, but in all of Mesoamerica they shared one common aspect. They all had the calendar round. So the calendar round was composed of 2 different calendars. There was the solar calendar that was 360 days plus 5 liminal days. Okay, some of my favorite days. And then they also had, that was also the other aspect about was the divinatory calendar. And that's what we'll say. They had different names for that. But I'll use that right now because we're talking about various different languages for hundreds of different peoples. And especially if you talk about the Maya. So what they would do is they had those 2 calendars. Like imagine like one calendar 365 days and one that's 260 days. That's a divinatory calendar. That was 13, the trecena, there was like 13, and then it was multiplied by 20, and then that came out to 260. So there was, and it's a little complicated here, but I'll just say there's 260, that's the divinatory, 365 days is the solar, right? So they would come together, they would like literally come together, they had like a round calendar, and that's why they're called that, and they'd come together, and they would come together for 18,890 days, that when they would come together, and every 52 years, it would cycle to like something that was repeating. That was like one cycle of that, right? So how those 2 were coming together. And I actually do talk about it more in Cleansing Rites and Curandismo, just as like a little bit of a heads up. It sounds really complicated, but once you start working them, it gets easier. I promise you. I promise you it does. And that's why I was like, the divinatory calendar is like amazing. So the divinatory calendar, that's 260 days, and it's 20 day signs. 20 day signs. So all throughout central Mexico, they all had the calendar round, but they nuanced the different meanings of the day signs. They were slightly different. So, for example, like Mazatl was deer, and then Manic, in the Maya we have their Manic, but it also symbolized a deer, and the death of like the deer, the story with the twins when the father dies and becomes a deer and resurrects as a deer, and also the completion. So you see a lot more layered meanings. And I'll talk about that too, like how it relates to the guidebook, because you can learn about a lot of those things in this little guidebook that comes with the calendar. So basically, you have all these different associations there, and they would refer to the divinatory calendar for marriages, when to go to, when someone was a ruler, when to like marry, when to have a baby, when the baby was gonna have a certain day sign, what craft they would be, what name they would have. They would refer to the day signs for pretty much everything. Like everything they refer to that. They would refer to them to, you name it. And that's what you went there, and you went to like someone that would read to you the day signs. And throughout the different tribes, they had their different auguries, their different codices that would tell you, like, they would read them in different ways. We have a couple like remainders of that with the Borgia, and there's a few codices that we have examples of that, right? But what happened was, in the 16th century, when the Spaniards came, they thought those books were heresy. There was like, oh no, that's, because, I mean, they're very much on point. They're very, very, they have their own, like, energy signature. So backing up a little bit, all the day signs, they were connected along with, they were believed to be connected with ancestors, giving guides, giving information. They were given to divine beings. They were connected to planets. They were connected to all these different things, depending on what you were trying to get information from. So you can access pretty much anything. So when the Spaniards came, like, oh no, this is the devil's work. They like burned all the books, most of them anyway. There were 20 that are still remaining. And I talk about those 20 in Cleansing Rites of Curanderismo. They still have the 20 that we have. But there were a lot of indigenous people that actually practice the divinatory calendar, and like, they kept it secret. You know, now they're like a little bit like in Oaxaca, we see that too. In a lot of places in Guatemala, they're a lot more open. A lot of places in the Yucatan, they're a lot more open. They have like been very resilient about keeping those traditions alive. Yeah, because I mean, it wasn't like something like, oh, you get a fine for that. No, especially Landa, with the Maya, like, you would get like persecuted. You know, it wasn't like something simple, like you would get like banned, you get thrown in jail. They were serious about that. So, you know, those records were destroyed for a long time, and that's what a lot of us, we've been reclaiming them. We've been taking on, and that was like inspired me, because they have been so helpful for me and the people that I've worked with. And when I was teaching the classes with the paper cards, they're like, you should make cards like this. And I was like, one day. And this one day came. So, yeah, and you know, it actually has in the guidebook here, it tells you a little bit about the history of the calendar. It tells you, you know, just everything pretty much what I summarized right now. There's a little bit more in there too, and there's some in Cleansing Rites of Curanderismo, but everything that you need to know about the cards themselves. So the cards are composed 20-day signs of the TZOLK'IN with the Maya, 20-day signs of the TONALPOHUALLI, which is Central Mexican, right? How you know the difference when you're working with the cards themselves, how you know the difference between the, can you show, honey? That is Cali. That is actually from Central Mexico. That is the TONALPOHUALLI. The way you know that is because it doesn't have a cartouche around it. This, for example, has a cartouche around the glyph. So those are the actual glyphs that were back then, right? So that's how you know the difference. So again, the TONALPOHUALLI doesn't have a cartouche. The TZOLK'IN has a cartouche, which actually stays true to those traditions. So that's how you know, like, the difference. Just by looking at them, you'll know the difference of, like, okay, now I'm working with the TONALPOHUALLI and the TZOLK'IN, because they have a little bit of a different flavor. And I'll tell you a little bit about that when you start working with them. And it's a little bit, it's beautiful wisdom, both of them, but a little bit of a different flavor of the wisdom. So that's when the way that you can visually tell the difference between the signs, right? So, the glyphs in Central Mexico, just as a heads up, and this is how you understand how and I explain this a little bit in the guidebook, but you'll start learning it too, so we know this too, and we can tell our children this too, because it's our beautiful traditions, you know, and even if you're not necessarily from Mesoamerica, like your Latinx, these are indigenous traditions that hopefully we're helping to preserve, and Tia Chucha has been doing a wonderful job in indigenous us in doing that. So, so for example, like the glyphs in the central Mexico, they were very much symbolic. So it was the meaning, like the meaning you could tell from the symbol, and they were multi-layered. So it was very much dependent on the context of what was going on. So example, like if you see this, like if you see, for example, you see Ozomatli, you know, the monkey in there, and you see, like you read it in context, and you see it with the sun, or you see it with the moon, like it could be telling you there's something related to, like you are gonna have a lot of children, or maybe telling you something about an eclipse. So you had to read it in context, because the same glyph, it's still Ozomatli relating to being like monkey, like balancing out with play, something about like scribes with artisans related to that, but you read it within its context. So that's a little bit different about the TONALPOHUALLI. They're much more, they are pictorial. They are pictorial, and they are multi-layered in picture. So the TONALPOHUALLI, you have 10 animals in here. You have 10 animals here, and they were also, you have like the construct here, you have Kali, which is house. That's like the one that is house. And you also have the floral, right? Which is like the flower, the reed, the sochi. You have 3 of those, and you also have certain forces of nature, wind, right? So it was things that were common that were going on that they could relate to, because it was also something like, it would relate it to like what was for agriculture, so with practical purposes too, right? What was telling you like, no, don't plant on this time because eclipses are not good for this, or full moon, there's gonna be a lot of rain coming in, and this is what's gonna happen, you're gonna have mildew with the water. So it was practical too. It was along with telling you like what to do, and it was for practical reasons as well. So the Maya are a little different, and there's a reason for that. The reason for that is because and this is something that's really important for us to preserve. The name TZOLK'IN is actually constructed. You know, we know that as TZOLK'IN, and a lot of people use it, but we're talking about hundreds of different languages. You know, when the Spaniards came to the Yucatan, they started calling everyone, like, because there's actually the Mayo people that speak Yucatec Maya. Now, if you ever go to the Yucatan and you talk to someone Yucatec Maya, they'll tell you, no, it's just Maya. So I use those sometimes interchangeably, because we have a place there, and it's used interchangeably, right? Yucatec Maya, Maya. But we're talking about hundreds of different languages. So when the Spaniards came here, they started calling everybody Maya. You're a Maya, you're a Maya, you're a Maya. It didn't matter if you were Lacandon, if you were Tetzil or Tetzal, like everybody was Maya. Now, if you ask somebody who's Tetzil or Lacandon, they're like, I'm not Maya, I'm Tetzil, I'm Lacandon. But just as a quick like reference, so you know, the Quiche, very early in this century, they started actually reappropriating the term Maya. They're like, you know what? We are going to tell you what Maya is. We're going to take that term. We're Quiche, but we're going to tell you we're Maya. They started creating like a pan-Maya spiritual movement. You know, like creating this whole idea, like reclaiming their traditions. We're gonna tell you. You want to call us Maya? No. We're gonna reclaim that Maya, but we're gonna tell you what that is for us. So, just a little background there. So you know, and that's a really important understanding of like reappropriating a lot of the movements that are going on with the indigenous people, of like reclaiming their sovereignty, and especially with the government, to claim rights in a lot of these places. So, with that understanding, you know, the reason why, for example, I say it's not like in Nahuatl, I will tell you like, okay, this means this in Nahuatl. In the guidebook, for example, we're talking about various different kinds of associations. So for example, when I mention manik, the deer, it's also associated with completion. When you see it on a deity's jaw, you see it there with a hand, and it also means completion. Another is like, there's a lot of conflations there with example for Inish, it's like growth of corn. It's also associated with Earth, with the planet Earth, because there's been a lot of Maya peoples, and now I'm using that too, because I'm like, okay, I like that. We're gonna reappropriate that. That's cool. Thank you. Because we use that anyway with that understanding. So there's different associations, and if you go to it, I tell you the different associations, and also a lot of those things, whether they're classic, they're post-classic, so you can kind of understand where it's coming from. You can kind of understand there where it's coming from. And the glyphs in Maya that have this, it is pictorial, and it's also phonetic. It's also sound. So they also, like, if you see this in one of the codices in the Madrid or Dresden Codex, it's not just the picture. It's also sometimes the word. It also will tell you the word. So it has like 2 meanings. It's a little bit different there too. But it's cool, because once you start learning the associations, you can actually start reading the codices and understanding a lot of what's going on. Because these traditions, these language, it's not like it's so complex that it can't be like, I mean, this little 96-page guidebook is jam-packed with information. It was a labor of love. Yeah, it was like, do we have a guidebook? Hell yes, we do. Yeah, because I want you guys to know what's going on, and I want these traditions to be kept alive. So that's a little bit about like how do you understand, like what are the differences with these glyphs, right? So now when you have your guidebook, just, you know, one thing to understand and one thing to really like to know is that, and I'm just gonna give you guys one example, okay? This, I mean, for me, like, I love, like, it still, like, blows my mind. That's why I felt like this, I love, like, I know, like, in past lives, I've worked with these before. Like, yeah, I know, like, I've had times where I've gone to places and I can tell you what the glyphs meant before actually even studying them. And then I studied them, like, okay, yeah, I remember this. Last week, it was, like, drizzling. It was drizzling outside and there was, like, rain coming. And I was, like, thinking to myself, and I was, like, in my pajamas, I was having my little coffee and my cafecito and my pan, pan dulce. I was all, like, snuggly, and I was like, I should put my bowl of water for some, my limpia rights and my brujeria rights so I can get some rainwater. And I was like, oh, but I'm so comfortable. And I was preparing for this ID life, so I'm like, let me just do a reading and see what the cards say. The card that pulled out there was right away, like, auto. It was like, and that is basically positive developments with water limpia rights. Do water limpia rights. It was like, go out there. And it was like, all the ancestors, the guys were like, go and get your bowl of water. Don't be lazy. Andale. So I was like, oh, okay, gonna go get my bowl of water. It's just like so on point. They're so on point. But I will tell you this. The reason why they're so on point is because I have these cards on my ancestral altar. Do you need to have them on your ancestral altar? No. But put them somewhere special. When you put them somewhere, and this is a connection with these, because these day signs are believed to have their own soul energy, okay? In Nahuatl, that's tonali, and that's Churiel. They're believed to have their own soul energy, and every day sign has its own specific tonali. Right now, I'm just going to use the Nahuatl. It has its own specific tonali. So when you start connecting with them and start putting them somewhere that you feel you connected in your heart, like an altar or like maybe next to your bed, you start connecting your soul energy with them, and they start connecting with you. I love my ancestrals. I have my ancestral altar up, like it's like year round. They get extra stuff for Dia de los Muertos, but I put them there, and I know that's why they're so on point. So these are recommendations. It's always nice, to first. It's not so much about like, when I'm saying like doing limpias or cleansing, it's not so much because a lot of times when I say that, people automatically think like, oh, I'm doing a limpia to cleanse myself of bad energy. Okay, maybe. But it's more about feeding the essence energy. Like when a lot of the Maya, a lot of the peoples, they do limpias for their house, space limpias, they do it to honor the living spaces of their houses. It's not just to like cleanse the energy. It's like, I do it monthly because I love my living space. My living space takes care of me. If I'm not sleeping well one night, that tells me I need to do a space limpia for my room. I need to cleanse it because there's something there that's stuck there. So when I say this, and to cleanse the cards, it's not necessarily that they're coming in with bad energy, because wherever you get them, I've chosen places that are really awesome. So no, there's not going to be any shade there. It's not going to be like you're cleansing them of that bad energy. It's more for you to start honoring them. It's more a way of how we honor ourselves. Like when I do limpias, it's not about like, oh, I work with some icky clients. No, all the people I work with, they're awesome. Like I work with like amazing people. I'm blessed with that. It's because it's self-care. So the way we cleanse our cards, when you get your cards, it's like showing your love. Why? Because you want them to be able to guide you. You want them to be able to start connecting with you, right? So the way you cleanse, the way you like to be cleansed, think about that, because your cards are going to be like, they're your cards. How do you like to be cleansed? Ask yourself that. Do you like smudging? Do you like fire limpias? Do you like baños, like baths? How do you like to be cleansed? I work a lot with tobacco, organic tobacco. I do every day. I have a little mapacho. I do some healing. I make like different pomadas with tobacco. I like a lot working with air, so I smoke a little bit and I actually puff it out, and that's actually understood as like doing air, like doing limpias with air. So that's how I cleanse a lot of when I work with my cards. I have a little tobacco and I blow a little bit on them, and then I get my feather fan and I blow them there, a little bit on the cards. You can also work with earth if you're very much like connected with earth. Like one thing that you can do is put your cards. You can either have them like on like a full moon, a new moon. If you're cool with working with the eclipses and you're cool with the tzitzime, I am. You're not scared of them. If you're not doing nasty things. You can put them there and charge them on the full moon, new moon. You can charge them then. You can charge them on a sacred site.
like your favorite tree, and this have, and if you happen to be somewhere like a Maya or a Central Mexican site, do take them. They like to visit. They like to visit. I usually use my medicine bundle and I put them with me, and that's why I brought them with me where I go. And I'll talk a little bit about medicine bundles. You know, and I have my Wichon medicine bundle. That's what I like to use. But you know, you can use a bandana or a rebozo, a shawl. Just a little quick tip, just if you want to use like medicine bundles to put that, because that's why I actually put them on, when I charge them on Earth, I put them on my medicine bundle, which you can also use a pillowcase as a medicine bundle too. So if you want to do some dream work with the day signs as well, that's pretty amazing, I'll tell you that. Like you put the cards on there, you get like a reading, and then that night you'll start dreaming about them. Like really, for real. They'll start connecting with you there. So you can put them on Earth. You can also use fire. You know, you can do a white fire limpia. It's very simple. Pots, rubbing alcohol, a couple handfuls of Epsom salt, dry herbs. All herbs have cleansing properties. And what you do is you wait like a minute or so. You wait for the fire to get going. Once the orange flames start becoming visible, just very gently, you put your cards over them and you cleanse them. And it's cleansing them like feeding their energy. You're feeding their energy because you're starting to connect. You're opening up your soul energy with them so they can start guiding you and telling you more precisely what is needed. And these are ancient traditions of working with things. This isn't, you know, this is how we did it, how our ancestors did it, how a lot of curanderos, they still do it, especially how I was taught to do it. So, you know, but think about like how you like to be cleansed. If you like water, if you like baños, what you can do is, you know, get your Florida water, put a little spray and, you know, put a little spray on them, like spray them and spray yourself. You like that. You can put them on like with charged water, with like moon water on top, whatever way you like to be cleansed. And ask them too, ask the cards, already start talking to them and saying, how would you like to be cleansed? They appreciate it, just like plants like it, they like it too. You know, it's sweet, like you start doing that, you already start making that connection. So once you have cleansed them, once you have given them and fed their energy and connected it with yours, another beautiful thing that I was taught to do was, and again, a medicine bundle, it doesn't have to be, you know, like for example, the Huichol, they generally use handkerchief to collect the peyote buttons, you know, but you can use, you know, something that if you have a medicine bundle or rebozo, a lot of the women in the Mexican Revolution, they wore rebozos, they were actually sacred. They were thought to like protect them. If you have like a favorite shawl that you feel very connected to, or your favorite pillowcase, you put it out, right? And what you're going to do is you put your cards in the middle. You put the cards in the middle, and then what I recommend to do is you create them and you connect them with the cardinal spaces. And I talk about that I talk about it too in with the cardinal spaces, because you know, every card, every day sign is also just nuanced by every cardinal space as well. You know, for example, when I said like I connected with Adel with water, Adel is East presides over Adel, and East is associated with new beginnings. You know, the sun rises, new beginnings. So I knew it's like I need to get my butt out there and get the bowl of water, and not be, you know, like sitting there like, oh, how nice, it's raining. But get out there and get it, because that was going to be a new beginning. That's how my connection with water was going to help to precipitate that new beginning, you know, a positive development for me. So that like all the cardinal spaces start nuancing. So it's nice to be able to start connecting with the energies of the cardinal spaces, because the cardinal spaces were also believed to have their own tonali. Like a lot of times when we do soul retrieval, and I won't go so much into that, we connect. You know, what's also traditional, we connect with the cardinal spaces, because every time we do that, the cardinal spaces give us tonali as well. So this connection, we started connecting with the cardinal spaces and charging, and basically it's like an activation. You enliven, like you're animating the cards, like they call it like you're animating, like that's what you say. You there's stuff on the anima, like you're putting soul, anima, like like I know in Spanish. How do you say it in English? And like. Yeah, like you're putting like spirit in the cards, right? You're putting that in there. So like when you do that, you connect it with, you like get it, like, however, you connect with that. You can, be precise, and you can, like, look at, like, you can get, like, a compass and see what's north, south, east, or west. But keep in mind that a lot of times in central Mexico, and also, like, in the Maya, too, they're not necessarily, they weren't fixed spaces. They could be fixed spaces, but they weren't necessarily fixed spaces, okay? They were both. So, would be, for example, like, if we say that this is north was often associated with, in central Mexico, when we passed, you went to the north, and that's what determined where you were going to be at in the non-ordinary realms. Also in the Maya, it was associated with ancestors, getting medicine, getting wisdom. So what I recommend to do is get something that you feel represents, that you feel connection with your ancestor. I was given when I went to Mexico a couple weeks ago, my uncle blessed me with like all these pictures of my great grandfather, my great grandfather, my grandmother's sister also was telling me stories of my great grandmother who was a curandera. So like put something there, like for example, I did that recently. Put a picture there that's in the north, something that you feel connected in. If you don't know who your ancestors are, like your bloodline, something that you feel culturally connected. Maybe it's something that you feel like a calendar. Maybe you feel like it's something that you got like a glyph, or you got like a stone or jade, or something that you feel connected to your ancestors. Because this is something specific for you. Something that you feel like, oh, this is my ancestors. You're connected with your soul energy, so like don't get in your head about it, get in your heart about it, right? So, you connect it with the north, with the ancestors. And then the west was associated, and you can also do like the north with like the colors too, like being white and black, the white being the Maya, the black being the Mexica, and then the west, you can also connect it there to the underworld. And there's I won't go into like the spaces, but all like the different meanings. But the underworld wasn't like a hell. It was like a space where you went there to work with your shadow aspects. To like start facing them, to start loving them, hopefully, integrating them, recognizing, becoming aware of them. So something that, the underworld, like you put like a glass of water. I have in one of my medicine bundles, I have, for example, an abalone shell. A beautiful abalone shell of a tetrahedron, a pyramid there, that I got one time in my visits when I was down in the Yucatan. So I have it there with the west. That's symbolic of the west. And then the south is a space into the underworld. That's a space of discovery and understanding of like what's going on. Why are you repeating certain patterns? Why are you doing some shady stuff? And like dealing with those things. So that's a path to the underworld. And the south can be like discovery and understanding. It can be something playful too, because hopefully we're not like coming from a space where we're like, oh God, I have to do this horrible work. No, it's something that's beautiful. So it could be something that you feel like is discovery and understanding to you. It could be like, I like to put my sortlage, my corn that I have there, my yeast there that I have, I use that for discovery and understanding. That's what it means for me. It could be something, whatever it means for discovery and understanding for you, right? For the east, that's a space of new beginnings, as I alluded to earlier. The space of new beginnings can be something that's specific for you, like the east. And anytime you go to the day sign, it'll tell you like, for example, I opened up to Caban. The east, the space of new beginnings, provides over Caban. So you'll learn like a little bit about like what these things mean. So it has them all there in your guidebook, so you'll know about that. And Curanderismo soul retrieval like goes much more in depth if you want to do soul retrieval work, but everything here is in your guidebook. So once you have this cardinal space is set up and getting that, another thing that you can start doing too, that you want to like activate that, is you can activate it with the non-ordinary realms. Upper world, and there's a conflation there with the upper world and the north. The upper world is a paradisal realm where our ancestors preside, where, afterwards, after 4 years, they became butterflies, spend all of eternity drinking the sweet nectar of flowers. And that's the upper world. Like something that's paradisal, something that's playful. I like to put chili mango, my chili mango lollipops, because that reminds me of my inner child, like sweet and playful. That's the upper world for me. The middle world is like a reflection of all cardinal spaces that you're going to be working with the past, present, and future when you need those messages. When you need those messages to understand what's going on in the past, what's going on in the present, the future. Because think about this, you're activating your card, your deck, so you can get this information like that. And it will come like lightning, like so quickly. The underworld, as I had mentioned earlier, is a space of, you know, you're passing your test. You know, you're doing the tochli work. You're going, that's also the south there too. You're doing the work, tochli is the rabbit in TONALPOHUALLI. You're doing your work of the underworld there. So you have this, you know, you position your medicine bundle, or you can position it, or you don't have to necessarily use a medicine bundle, you know, but you can position it there. And what you want to do is you want to ask yourself, what is one of your favorite cycles? Yes, you can look at like one of the Central Mexican or the Maya, but I ask you to ask yourself, like, is it your birthday? Is it a day? It could be like a day, like 24 hours. It could be like a new moon, a full moon. What is one of your favorite cycles? Because that's what you're going to just tune into, because that's like something that is your favorite. You're going to gift it, because with this cards, we're working in cycles. We're working in cycles. So this activation is connected with you with like one of your favorite cycles. It could be like on, I like to do like, I like to renew a lot of my sacred items on New Year's Eve. Like we have a party, we have a celebration. There's certain sacred items that I have birthdays for. You know, like we have a birthday, like that was also tradition back then, and that's still tradition to this day. So what you do is you position the cards there, and you have them all there, and you make ofrendas, offerings. I like doing it, you don't have to do it daily, I like doing it daily. I recommend an ofrenda could be copal, get a charcoal tablet, make sure you put it on something that's like glazed, that's like safe to put the charcoal tablet on, o copalero, or like, or an urn or something, and then you put some copal on it and you offer it daily. Or you can get incense, or you know, some of your favorite resins, and offer that daily. And you know, you can put it out in the sun or the moon, or you could just put it out in your like bed or somewhere beautiful, and that has been activated. I like to go there when you're doing it and connect with it. And you start doing that, that will start connecting and activating the soul energy of your cards. And I promise you, you will have a different relation with the cards. You will have a different relation with them. It will just be so much more like on point. And then afterwards, what I do, and you don't have to do this, I like to put my cards on my ancestral altar. If you don't have an ancestral altar, like you can put it next to, as I mentioned earlier, your nightstand, your bed. You know, hopefully your bed, you consider that's a sacred space where you sleep, you know, that takes care of you. Or you can put it like somewhere else, like on a window. They like the sun. They like the sun. They like the night, so they can put it up there. They like to be exposed to energy. The sun gives tonali. The moon gives magical energy, you know, and the night sun gives transformative energy. So you put them out there, and when you start doing that, and you know, you could put like a little cacao on them or corn. They will always, like, you don't have to necessarily work with them all the time, but when you want to work with them, when you want that on point answer because you've had them somewhere sacred, their response will be on point. So I'm now going to just do some spreads for you, okay? So just also another little tip here too, is you want to also make sure that like before, like if like someone's going to do, you're going to give like someone to do a reading, you don't have to do this, but I like to do this just because it's like respect for the cards, because as I mentioned, it's about like understanding and like respecting them, right? I like to always have like a little bit I always have Florida water in my purse, and so I was like, oh, I didn't bring Florida water. No, I have it in my purse. I like to give them a little bit of Florida water if they're going to take it to read cards for themselves, and I like to give them a little bit, and then, you know, just like cleanse their hands. And these are really good, thank you, to the ones who produce this. They actually they produce like really good quality cards. So you can have a little Florida water on their hands, and you can like actually like, you know, do the reading, and they could do the reading and then they give them back to you. It's like, you know, just so the Florida water is also too, sometimes for you, like if you are ever in a space where you're really confused, you're uncertain about something, you want to cleanse all your biases. So it's a nice idea to get a little bit of Florida water and, you know, cleanse it and then do the reading thereafter. Okay, so I'm going to show you some different ways of doing the readings, and you know, you can do different ways of doing it. And you know, I like to like just do, you know, just a simple thing. One of the ways that I recommend to do that is you can either like pick them from like the deck itself, or you can have them out, lay them out completely like that, is one of them that I have on there. I have a couple readings on the guidebook that I have suggestions on doing, some of the things that I learned. Tomorrow I'm doing an IG live to teach you the traditional way of sortilegio, sortilege, doing it with mais. But I'm going to show you just one that because it's, you know, Dia de los Muertos. So this one's a little different. This one isn't in the guidebook. So this one here, I'm just like, this one here is a reading for everybody here, everybody watching us, like everybody watching this. This is like just a general consensus. So the central one is going to be a theme, okay? And then the card here that's going to be here on my right is going to be the card here that is going to be awareness, what we need to be aware of. And then the card here on the left is something that our ancestors want us to know in this awareness and in this theme, okay? So I'll go through it. So the central came out, actually, yeah, sure. So the theme came out for Manique. It's the end of a cycle. So I'll talk a little bit about the Manique. So what the cards want us to know that right now, for us here who are watching this, that we're going through, like, we're going through a period where there's a cycle that's ending for us. There's a cycle for ending for us, and just to be aware that the ancestors are guiding us through that to let it just like flow, to let it flow gracefully as an end, and flowing through that as a cycle. So the card here, and these are the TZOLK'IN, this is the card of what to be aware of, Lamat. So on all the cards, the Maya word or the Nahuatl word is on top, and then the contemporary meaning is at the bottom, and then the center of that, the glyph, is the actual glyph of what, this was the actual glyph, and it was our beautiful artist, Caroline Gutierrez, that improvised that, but it's the glyph. It came from the original glyph from that. So Lamat here, Lamat was associated also with Venus, also, so, you know, it was associated there with like the planet, also associated with like being able to connect to our intuition. So something that the cards want us to know is to trust. That there's like, you know, just to trust our intuition, trust and flow, that there is a new cycle that is coming. With an end of a cycle, there is something that is beginning. So something that our ancestors now want us to know about this end of cycle and a new cycle coming. So something that our ancestors want us to know is to release complacency. The Masado, that's the deer. So in this new space of where we're at with Lama is to trust our intuition. We have been in a cycle where we have been too much complacent. That's what the ancestors, we've been like, oh, you know, we've just been kind of complacent. Like, oh, well, maybe tomorrow, like just settling to a large degree, and like the answers are like, yeah, like there's no more of that, like, because if not, we get pushed if we continue doing that. So the answer is like, release that complacency. You are out of that cycle of complacency. Trust your intuition and flow to what is calling you. Flow to what is calling you. Flow to what is calling you. Because when we don't, we get pushed. We get pushed. So trust in that. So I'm gonna do just one more reading, and we're almost out of time, but I'll do one more reading. So this one is a reading that I wanted it. This one was a little bit more of a complex one that was in the guidebook as well, but I want to go through it because I also want to just talk a little bit about the different meanings of it as well. So for this one here, the middle card is the theme, okay? The middle card is the theme. The left is a gift that we're not aware of, but it's going to help us on this path of this new cycle that we're supposed to be on, right? Because this is a continuation from the earlier one that I just did. So this is like a gift that's going to help us to be aware. The one on the right is a gift that we have been aware of, but we have not been utilizing. We have not been tapping into. The one at the end here at the south is the bridge, what the pathway looks like. The one at the top, the north, is also, and I'm gonna like nuance it a little bit too, seeing like, make sure I have time. We'll see. So the one on the top is éxito, it's success, like what the end point is going to look like, right? So asking for this new cycle, ¿qué va a pasar? Like what's gonna happen? Por favor. So for this new cycle, we're being told the theme of this is how. That's the sun. Embrace our infinite potential. Like let go of this complacency and let go and release and like embrace this infinite potential. The house sign with the Maya, that was like, how was like very common, like that meant like the sun in various different languages in Maya. You know, it was very much connected to like opening up like to your rulership, to like being a leader. When like you got how, that was like open up. You're meant to be a leader. You're meant to move forward. You're meant to do something, like get out of this complacency, right? So for this card for the left, Kali, this is a gift that you have. You've been complicated. We have, say all of us, we've been complicating it way too much. We've been thinking we have to do this, we have to go here, we have to get this, we have to go here. No, the cards are telling us Gali. Gali is house. You know, simplicity is key. In Central Mexican traditions, Central Mesoamerican traditions, Gali, the house. One of the things they had in the house, they just had a reed mat. That's what they had. That mat folded up, they rolled it up into a chair, they sat in it. Like their furniture was like a table, a mat, the hearth, but their gardens were amazing. That was like what made the house. You know, the gardens, right? But it wasn't like all this fluff stuff. They like to keep very simple. Like it was very simple, so we're forgetting on this path, this gift that we have everything we need. That we have to like get back to simplicity. In this path that we're going to, simplicity is key. And if time allows, I'll give a little bit more nuance it a little bit more too. Because I also want to like open up if anybody has any questions. If not, I'll nuance it more. Yeah. So here we have on the sign of like a gift that we have that we are aware of is Olin. Olin is movement. Olin was a cycle that we're in right now. Well, there's some variations as to that, but it's a cycle that we're in. It's like the movement. Now we Olin. It's movement. It's constant motion. And here is a gift that we have that we know we're aware of what we need. We're aware of what we need. We're aware of what is self-care for us, what that looks like. We have to get back to honoring our cycles, honoring ourselves. Get back to doing like regular limpias, to get back to like eating a certain way, whatever that looks like honoring your cycles, because it's going to help you to get into your infinite potential. Because like we've been like in a space of like complacency too much. The cards are like, I don't know. Sometimes the messages are not always like fluffy. Yeah. But that's kind of why I like them though. So this is a path, is Ish. Claim your power. So Ish, thank you, honey. So Ish is associated with a jaguar. It had many conflations, right? It had many conflations. It was also a grandmother. It was a shapeshifter. It was the path of, like, you were in the underworld. You were in the underworld. So here, because it's in that path, this is a path of, like, stop trying to, like, get so much in your head about it. Like, plan A, plan B, like, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like, see what is not there. But, like, feel into it by trusting your intuition. You know, like, get out of your head about it. Get more into your primal animal instincts, into being that jaguar that, like, hunts, that prowls, that looks and sees. And that's that path of, like, just being still and then observing, 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 and then you make your move. That's that ish, that's that path of like, and that's claiming your power. That is claiming your power. It was, so that's a little bit about the ish card there. That's the path that's saying. So the éxito, the end point, the success. This is the, this is here is release toxicity, right? The vulture. This is the end point. That we're like, this is like the éxito of like how we get to all this, of getting into our infinite potential is, ooh, the answers were spicy today. These answers were a little spacey. Wow. They're saying like, we gotta release toxicity. We gotta release, like, we gotta do some like inventory of like what's going on in our life, what's not serving us, who's not serving us, what patterns are not serving us, what things we're not doing are not serving us, because it's like, it's time to like, chow chow, let him go. Like, nicely, but let him go. So, before I give like a further meaning, does anyone here have any questions? Yes.
With that jaguar sigil, I mean, knowing like Mayan, studying Mayan hieroglyphics, I know every dot, every line has certain significance. So I was just wondering, like, maybe would you have more insight into like what those circles mean? There's like 3 circles inside them.
Yeah. So Ish could also be like, it was also connected to the sun as well, the night sun.
Right.
It was the night sun. It was the jaguar, because it was believed that the sun would actually shapeshift at nighttime and become a lord of the night at night. So it was a shapeshifter, was going in there like of what that was. So, and it actually in the guidebook here, like I'm just gonna just like an example here, Ish, right? So Ish had associations with the jaguar, night, sun, the night sun, and the underworld. There are numerous Maya jaguar deities that are identified with the night sun, okay? Because there was the sun and then there was the night sun. It was believed that every night an aspect of the sun would shapeshift into a jaguar and would roam the underworld as one of the lords of night. In Maya codical auguries, feminized, anthropomorphic, lunar-related deities appeared with jaguar claws, fangs, and a jaguar to signal some kind of transition, shapeshifting. The north, the space of ancestral medicine and wisdom, presides over Ish, and lets us know that our ancestors are asking us to step into our power. Ish is the 14th day sign of the TZOLK'IN. So it tells you like what the TZOLK'IN, like the 14th day, it tells you all of here. So, you know, yeah, like it's all there, like it tells you a little bit there. And you know it's like the night sun because it's, they call it like in a lot of, at least my professors, what they call it, like the 3 dots were associated with like the night, like kind of like closing its eyes, like being a night.
Right.
And like when they had like the sun, like the sun was like coming into, because it had like, it would like have like a little bit of like a jaguar, like markings, patterns on it, so letting you know that it was the night sun, and it had like a marking of Ish. You know, so like it's really cool. Like once you start knowing like some of like this looks like, oh, that's related to Ish. Because sometimes it'll just have the 3 dots. Like when you look at it in the Dresden and the Madrid Codex, it's like, I'm sorry, I'm like super nerdy here. I'm getting nerdy out. Like I love this stuff. So like you start learning, you'll start seeing it when you look at the codex and you start looking at it. You're like, oh, you can start understanding. You can start understanding and like looking at a lot of these things in parallel. So I think we have 1 more minute. Yes.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any more questions? And I'll just, if not, I'll give 1 more. Okay, we have 1 more minute. So okay. So if you want to nuance this just a little bit more, like, and I'll be like really, really super quick. So if you want to nuance this a little bit more, you will look at it with the cardinal spaces, how to read it with the cardinal spaces, right? So for example, like Olin is East, the new beginnings. What are the new beginnings for you is to honor your cycles, right? Another way to like do this, the same spread, but like doing it with the cardinal spaces. Like Kali, for example, is the underworld, saying like, sorry, you know, you've been like going in this underworld because you're making things too complicated. You need to get back to like the simple stuff. Get back to your basics. You know, as far as the ancestors telling us like release toxicity, like that's the north, right? So the south, our path to discovery and understanding is claiming our power. Our internal, within us, to be that infinite potential. So that's it. Thank you guys.